Well, hello and welcome to another edition of the Opline podcast, the Opcast. I am your host, Beau Higgins, and I have the pleasure today to be joined by Andia Dinesen. And we'll talk a lot about what she's doing today at MOAA and how she got to where she is. For those that may not be familiar with Opline, Opline is a tool or resource we provide free to veterans, military spouses, student veterans that helps you align your skills and talents to open jobs. Please check out www.opline.com to check that out. Or if you're a company that's interested in finding veteran talent or military spouse talent, you can also reach out to us at Opline. We'd love to talk to you. But today, we're going to talk a little bit about MOAA and Andia and how she's doing these days. So welcome to the show. We'd love to hear about your current role and what's going on these days.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Bo. I appreciate you having me on. So like you said, Andia Dinesen, I'm the Senior Director for Transition and Member Services at the Military Officers Association of America, or MOAA, which most people know us as. And I've been there for 2 months. It was 2 months yesterday that, that I've been on the ground at MOAA. Really want to focus on the career transition team and what I do in that space for purposes of this podcast, which is really helping folks find what they're going to do for their next career at the point of transition. And that can mean a lot of different things. It can also mean things for military spouses, as you were mentioning as well. You know, we can help with that as well. The great thing about MOAA's offerings is that we are able to do it through the MOAA charities. And so they are open to all ranks, spouses, survivors, etc. So when we're doing a webinar, a classroom series, like you can reach out to us and get access to those resources, whether you're a MOAA member or not.
Great insights, and we'll talk more about that for sure. But I'm really always curious about the journey to get where you are. Now, I've only been in this role for a couple months, so relatively new to this specific job, but you've been in this space for a long time. And I found that most folks that are in this space, you start off a lot of times as a volunteer and you kind of work your way into it. And I'm just curious, like, how did your journey begin?
Yeah, so it goes way, way back to when my husband was first deploying. So my husband's been 23 years in the Air Force. He retired just over 2 years ago. And so we moved 9 times. He moved 10 times. We lived in, 13 different houses. We moved 5 times in the first 5 years of his career, and 2 of those were overseas assignments, right? So we were just moving, having kids, busy life at the beginning. And then we got to Moody Air Force Base in Georgia. And that was really where I started volunteering. And I realized like he was going to train and deploy, and I needed to figure out how I was going to be involved and how I was going to support other military spouses during this time as well. And so that was kind of the catalyst for launching my career. Shortly after that, I applied for the FINRA Investor Education Military Spouse Fellowship for Financial Counseling. So that was how I earned my accredited financial counselor designation. And shout out that that fellowship is open for applications right now. It's still going on. So I earned that back in 2011 and really hit the ground running in this space. So have focused a lot on the financial education and counseling side, but really opened the aperture during my spouse's transition to sort of talk about this very specific space on finding a career path. Of course, I've worked and mentored many military spouses over my years, and also service members and veterans, and helped them find career paths. A lot of people don't know, but military spouses have an unemployment rate of like 20 to 25%, and underemployment is near 50%. Military spouses know the struggle. Like we reinvent ourselves. As you said, sometimes we're volunteering, sometimes we're, making a career or reinventing that career every 2 to 3 years. And that can be a lot. So I've been sort of working in this transition space, although not officially, right, for a really long time. And then my husband and I actually have our own podcast called the Next Tour Podcast. And we talk about military transition. And we've been doing that for just over a year. So yeah, that's been a really fun experience as well. But that's kind of how I shifted into this career transition space and what sort of brought me to MOAA. But I did work in the banking trade space for 12 years and focused a lot on military. It was a military banking association. And so focused a lot on military readiness as well, and financial readiness, specifically.
No, that's great, and I always love to hear the journey, again, from the volunteer to the, making it a full-time, vocation and passion, and I think it's important to highlight what you said too, the idea of, military spouse unemployment being as bad as it is, over 20%. I think the piece that you did bring up that often gets overlooked is the underemployment piece as well, I mean, the sad truth, if you're stationed in 29 Palms, you're stationed in the middle of nowhere, some of these bases, you're a military spouse with a master's degree, and the best thing you can do is work at, Robin Hood making subs, right? I mean, it's pretty rough, right? I mean, it's
Yeah.
pretty bad out there. I mean, it's a job, but man, it's way, way below your pay level, right? And that can be,
Mhm.
discouraging for a lot of folks. And I know, I mean, I certainly a lot has been done in the space, trying to create the military MSEP program and the skill bridge like programs for spouses, but a lot of work still to be done. One specific question on your career path, did you see that and I would assume the answer is yes, but the financial planning side of the house was something that was transferable from base to base? Because I know a lot of the skills, if you're a doctor or if you're a
Yeah.
teacher or if you're a lawyer, maybe not. But on the financial planning side, that's something that was recognized kind of nationwide.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm actually going to answer your question and bring up one more thing that you just mentioned that made me think of it. But yes, so the Accredited Financial Counselor designation, or the AFC, is a certification that belongs to me. Right. So that is totally transferable. It's a nationally recognized designation. So, and it is a financial counselor, which is a little bit different than a financial planner, just to more on the information and education side of the house than the like, I'm going to sit down and we're going to talk about assets under management or anything like that. So it's a little bit different, but we have a lot of AFCs in the military spouse space that are kind of all over the world, honestly, doing this job. So there, and it looks different for a lot of people as well, but it is a greatly transferable because it does belong to me and it does not belong to, the specific organization that I'm working for. And then the other thing I wanted to bring up is that there is legislation on the Hill right now, and I'm going to refer to my notes so I don't get these wrong, but HR 6231 and S 3265, which is the work opportunity tax credit for military spouses. So on the Hill right now, an important legislation piece that MOAA is supporting. So definitely you can always check out our advocacy in action and on our website as well to find out more information about that. But really important in the military spouse space, not just for those designations, but also for opportunities as you're moving, as you were talking about that. So super important.
I'm gonna take pull on that thread a little bit because I know a lot of companies aren't aware of the work opportunity tax credit, the WOTC. So again, I have talked a lot about this when I advise companies on why it is a good investment to have a dedicated veteran slash military spouse hiring team or to invest in veteran hiring. It's great to say we raise wave the flag and American pie and we support veterans. That's awesome. And I'm not saying don't do that, but there is a tangible fiscal benefit to hiring veterans. And one of the biggest ones is the tax credit. Basically, if for those that don't know it, when you get off of leave the military, you can get unemployment funding and you can get a lot of benefits from the government until you get a job. So it behooves the government to have veterans have jobs, right? So if your company hires a veteran, you get a tax credit for that. And so many companies aren't even aware that they get a tax credit for veterans, much alone, hopefully soon, military spouses. But even for veterans, they're not aware of that. I mean, at Amazon, it was millions of dollars of a tax credit we would get because we would hire tens of thousands of veterans every year, right? That's a big number. And I always said, if all this money we're getting back in a tax credit should be money we reinvest in hiring more veterans. Again, I think
Yeah.
they're obviously going to work harder and they're better employees for a variety of reasons. And I'm admittedly biased in that way. But again, if you have an average, if you're, if it's the choice between candidate A and candidate B, and the only difference is one is a veteran and one is not, and they're equal other ways, why wouldn't you hire a veteran? From the bottom line, from purely a financial standpoint, there's a tax credit that comes with that. And so many companies aren't aware that's out there. But it's great to see. And I know they've pushed on this, the WOTC piece for military spouses for several years, and they haven't gotten it through yet. So fingers crossed, this is the year to
Yeah.
make it happen. But it is something that, again, too many companies aren't aware of the tax benefits that are out there, for them to hire a veteran, hopefully reinvest that money into their veteran hiring program. So just want to plug in that. Good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Could not agree more with you there. The qualifications that are brought just by, that we talk about this in our transition classes that we have, but just this idea of like, we know how to, military members know how to like show up on time. Like, and that's not necessarily true for the entire population. That's a very small suggestion there, but there's a lot, that they're bringing to the table. And you're right. It's not, all things are not created equal. And a veteran is definitely bringing a lot to the table. I would say military spouses as well. We have done so many things, these soft skills over time, that really can bring so much to any profession that we're working in. I mean, just purely the PCSing over time, right?
Yeah.
You learn how to coordinate everything and do all the research and analyze everything and find a new place to live. And it's a lot of work, just all the soft skills. So it's a great point. Yeah.
And the thing I always bring up with our spouses too, and I saw this at Amazon, if you hire a military spouse, they are so appreciative. They are loyal as any employee is ever going to be. If you give a spouse a chance, they will put up with a lot to stick there. Like they're going to be very, very, when it comes to retention, spouses are great. They're so loyal if you give them the opportunity. That's something I think is probably appreciated or understated in the hiring world, is that, man, if you hire a spouse, they'll stick through it because they just appreciate the opportunity. So one thing that
Yeah.
I think is worth, foot stomping on for sure.
Great point. Great point.
All right. So obviously you kind of your early days were focused on the financial side of the house, if you will. How did MOAA get on your radar? Was it something you knew about? I mean, what was the process to get the starting point to kind of get to where you are today, running these programs for MOAA? Was it something you heard about in the past, or how'd that kind of come around?
Yeah, absolutely. So with my previous organization, which was the Association of Military Banks of America, we worked closely with MOAA. And so I was very aware of MOAA. I actually had a couple of friends that worked at MOAA. And so I was very aware of their advocacy work. We worked with them on different legislations throughout the time that I was with AMBA. And we were very closely aligned with them. And so that was really how I knew about it. But then on the personal side of the house, here my husband is faced with transition, right? He's a life member of MOAA and he's faced with transition. He's got about a year to go on active duty. And he was, really taking advantage of MOAA's tools and resources. And as a life member, he has access to, personalized, interview prep, LinkedIn reviews, profile reviews. I mean, not to be mean, but the man did not have a good presence on LinkedIn when we he first got started. And I linked him into my network because mine was a little bit broader than his at the time. But now I think he might be beating me now, but it's not a contest. But yeah, we started to learn really about all the things in the career transition space that MOAA had to offer. So he really took advantage of a lot of those things, and we started to really understand what all of those things were. A good friend of mine was on the benefits side, so doing also a financial counselor and helping with earned benefits and talking to a lot of surviving spouses and other MOAA members specifically about the different benefits that they have earned, and not only on the MOAA side of the house, but through the VA and things like that. So very well versed in that. And I think that was when I really realized that this was a place that I would love to come and bring my talents to, but not only that, be part of that mission. The Never Stop Serving mission, really spoke to me as a military spouse and military family, that, I wanted to be a part of helping service members through, and military spouses, through this transition space. So that was kind of how I got introduced to MOAA and came to the organization just a couple of short months ago.
That's awesome. That's awesome. No, it's great to hear that. And again, it's great that personal experience. That's nothing better than an actual, true personal testament to the resources that MOAA had to help your spouse transition, to say, all right, I saw this firsthand. I believe in it. Now I want to go out there and be part of this team and, and be able to impact even more people than you were probably able to do in your old role. So did the role come up? I'm always interested too about how you found the job itself. I mean, it's usually, everything is networking. Life is networking. Everything we do is about networking. I assume it was through networking, but how'd you actually get to that specific job, and what was that process like for you?
Yeah, that's such a great question and something I talk about now, like when I talk to folks about transitioning is sort of what this space looked like for me personally, because it just happened, right? So I decided it was time for me to look for a new position. So I started talking to people, people that I was close to, letting them know that I was interested in a possible move. And that was kind of how I left it at first. And then just started talking to people about different organizations they worked for and what they liked about it and what they didn't. So those like informational coffee sessions, whether it was virtual or in person, just to really sort of dig into that. And then when the job posted itself, I already knew about it. So my girlfriend that I was telling you that works at MOAA as well, she was the one that sent it to me. But then I had three other people send it to me too that knew I was looking. And the funniest part of all of this was that my I sent it to my husband and I said, this is that job at MOAA. And he said, did you read that description? Like, did you really read the description of the job? And I was like, yeah, I did. And then I went back and like read it again because I was like, what did he mean by that? And he wrote back and I said, holy cow, this job was like written for me. And he was like, exactly. He was like, that's exactly what I was trying to say. And I said, okay, this is really what I want. And then I went in like full bore as much as I could find out about the organization. I talked to a few different people. I, of course, submitted my resume and cover letter, did a little AI help, with some of that. I have a great resume that my husband and I worked together on, but did use AI a little bit to help match it with the job description. And actually, I've had two people from now the team that I work with on our podcast. And then we were featured in Military Officer Magazine talking member spotlight, which was, of course, mostly about my husband, but we were both in there talking about our podcast. So, I mentioned that as well. Like MOA is a big part of our lives and I wanted them to know. So I think connecting those personal things, the idea of never stop serving, like that was really the catalyst. So it was a public opening for the position. It wasn't like it was, hidden and I had to find it, but I think what was important about it is I did know folks in the organization that could say, hey, interview this person, like make sure she gets an interview. Luckily, I think I knocked it out of the park. Here I am. But I think that networking cannot be underscored enough because it is so, so important. Your resume is not going to get you a job. Your resume will get you looked at, but what's going to get you a job and what's going to get you an interview is those connections and those networks that you've got. And even if it's, two or three rings out, finding those sweet spots and connecting with those people, super important.
Yeah, I figured that was how it all went down. That's usually how it works. I mean, that's why I tell people all the time. I talk to so many veterans and military spouses that are frustrated about applying online. I never hear back. I'm like, look, I hate to tell you, if all you're doing is applying online and hoping you hear back, you're probably going to be waiting a long time. And I mean, 98% of the time, you're not going to get the results you want. Getting a job is about networking and doing exactly what you're talking about, learning about the culture of the company. So when you do get an interview, you can ask questions that show you're interested and know about the company you're going into, right? So networking is not just, talking to people and learning more. It's really understanding the company you're getting into. The people, are they happy there? How they get there? I mean, understanding those things is what networking is about when you're trying to get that job. And it's unfortunate, I think, that a lot of veterans in particular have this negative connotation about networking, that somehow it's like, it's a negative thing, like networking, there's something, slimy about it. I shouldn't do that. I'm like, what do you think you did in the military all the time? You had a dude over at the armory and you had a guy over at the motor pool and you had someone you knew over in admin that would hook you up. So like that was your buddy. That's networking. Now you can call it what you want. That's networking. Now it's the same thing in the civilian side. Don't make it sound like all of a sudden like, oh, I don't, that's beneath me. I'm like, no, you're talking to people to hopefully get a hookup when you need something down the line, right? So you want the extra steaks in the chow from the chow hall. You want you need to have your guy over there. That's networking.
That's right.
So, I don't know.
That's
So,
right. You
yeah,
just got to reframe it.
exactly.
Great point. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to is exactly right. You need to reframe what you call it and understand what you're doing. Same results, same outs, looking for the same kind of results from it, but just reframe it a little bit. And you obviously did a great job of that, and good on you. And I know is something you obviously share, with the folks that you work with at MOA. And again, now's a good time to talk about it. I know you've been there 2 months, but I would love to have you lay out kind of the programs that you're responsible for, lay out what they are and how people can get in touch with you and your team. Let's dig into the meat of this and like what's out
Yeah.
there right now with what you're doing.
So I guess first is the MOA job board, which is powered by Upline. Like there couldn't be any greater tool, right? I think it's a really impressive tool, and I've had a couple of demos about it, and I'm really impressed with how well that it works, and I think it gives people a good leg up on figuring out where they should sort of get started too, and see the different offerings out there. A lot of times it's hard to figure out how to translate those skills. Offline does a great job of that, so check out the MOA job board. First way to start. You can also get in touch with me on LinkedIn. We also have a MOA LinkedIn career networking page, and that's a great way to connect with others. Yep, there's that word networking. But we also offer a career accelerator seminar. It is a full day hybrid seminar that's either in person in our headquarters in Alexandria, Virginia, or like I said, it's hybrid, so it's also offered virtually. And we have those about 4 times a year. The next one is going to be on April 30th. And again, that's hybrid. You can find out about all the stuff on our website, MOA.org. So easy to find. And I think what's great about that is a deep dive into career networking. There's a lot, or career networking, into the career transition space. So I think there's a lot that's offered through the transition assistance program through TAP, but there's a lot that's left on the table, and there's a lot that needs to be dug into a lot deeper. So really like that accelerator program. So something to definitely look out for. There is a nominal cost for that program, but again, it is open to all ranks. And then we have a webinar series, and we have multiple webinars a year going from, space aid travel to healthcare options, VA benefits, a government relations update. There's a lot of things that are happening at any given time. And so we're out there, we're chatting about them. We just had one on charitable giving. We've got a couple coming up, one that's on concurrent receipt. I think that one is a really important one for folks to learn about. And I'm trying to think of the other ones that are coming up. Everything can be found on our events page on our website. Webinars, again, they're open to everyone. Come check them out. Even if you can't attend, the great thing is you can register and then you'll get the recording. So as long as you've registered, as far as the archive, those are only open to paid MOA members after the fact. So definitely important to register for those webinars that are coming up. So yeah, so we've got a lot of things. We're out there. We're doing resume critiques at different events. Sometimes we're doing 10-minute resume critiques, or if you're a MOA member, you can get a deep dive into a resume critique with one of our experts and learn about that. Interviewing. We also have a consultant we work with that works on federal resumes, which, yes, have aligned now to that 2-page, which is more consistent in the community, but still have some, things some tweaks that can be really helpful if you're looking into a federal position. The world has really changed over the last couple of years. The space looks a little different. And so I think the one thing that I'll leave everyone with is, and you said it too, like you can't just be throwing out resumes and hoping that something's going to stick to the wall. You've got to be talking to people. You can't do this alone. Transition is it's hard. And there are varying levels of hardness. And if someone says it's easy, they're one of two things. They're lying to themselves or they're lying to you. It's not an easy process, but it is a process and it is a journey. And so you've got to know who your experts are out there to talk to and to connect with to help you through, especially in the career transition space. So we've got lots to offer. MOA.org, check it out and connect with us.
No, I love that, and I really appreciate that. Because again, I think there's, as you mentioned, it's a great baseline, great information. A lot of times, though, it can be overwhelming for people. There's a lot of things going on during your TAP process, and it's a lot to take in at one spot. And I think, there are a lot of organizations out there that are offering help these days, and people can get lost in this sea of goodwill. I think people, for the most part, people mean well and want to help. There are some bad actors out there. I'm not going to say everything's perfect by any means, but to know that you have a place like MOA that can be a one-stop shop for all these things, to fill in some of the gaps. And to your point, is to provide a little more depth. Like, okay, I'm aware, I've heard of this thing. called Skill Bridge. I've heard of this thing called AI. Okay, but how do I actually do it? And to be able to take it in a time when you're not like on a 9 to 5 schedule of a class, and to maybe hear it again, and to have a recording you can go back to, and maybe to slow it down, and to get a career counselor that you can work with and talk to one on one, maybe not in that classroom environment, so to speak. There's so much goodness that you can get out of that you laid out, that again, I think that the process can be overwhelming. It's scary. I mean, leaving the military can be scary, or a military spouse transitioning from that military spouse lifestyle back into the civilian world can be a little bit intimidating. It's like, okay, I know how to navigate this world, but I'm going back. I was in it and I was out for a while, and I'm going back in again. What's changed? Am I current? It's always trying to feel that, and stay on top of things can be hard. And to have those resources available in a one-stop shop, like as you, I think it's a foot stomper. It's, although there's officers in the word MOAA, it's for everyone. I think that's a very important point to make, that this is for anyone looking for help. There are resources available for them to help their transition, to help them find the careers they want, to help them just learn more about what's available in general to the military community. And I love you provide those services. And it's been, again, great that we partner with you on the Opline side of the house as well. So
It really
as we kind
is.
of get ready to wrap up, I'm going to turn it back over to you. Any last words, anything you want to leave? I know you kind of had your last words a little bit, but last a sound bite before we close out today.
Ooh, last soundbite.
Yeah.
So I've done some reading on the work side of the house. So this is a couple things I'll bring up. I'm doing this leadership training that we do at MOAA, and it's the 21 laws. I'm going to mess up the name of the book here, but I think it's the 21 laws of leadership. I read the book before I started. We're doing leadership meet once a week. We talk through the different priorities, or the different we just did the law of priorities. We talk about the different laws every week. So doing those kinds of things, and now I'm reading the next 90, or the first 90. I was not prepared with these books titles I could share them with you afterwards. But I think reading and understanding and thinking more about transition and leadership, there's a lot of things out there you can do to help broaden your horizons as well. And even if you've been a leader for a really long time, being a leader in the civilian space is going to look a lot different than being a leader or being a leader in the military space is going to look a lot different than being a leader in the civilian space. I'm saying things all backwards
You
today.
got it.
But I think, look into these types of things and think about those. The thing I like about the 21 laws of leadership is that there were a lot of military examples in this book, even though the author was not a military member. But I think there was a lot that spoke to me. My husband's reading it now. There's a lot that speaks to him, in it. So think about those things. That would be my suggestion. Find a couple books to read.
I
Books are
love it.
great.
Learn to be curious was one of the things we talked about at Amazon all the time. I think it's never ending. You're always trying to better yourself, and seek that self-improvement. So great advice to close out on today. Well, hey, thank you so much for the time today. I really appreciate it. I love the partnership with Opline and MOAA. If you're out there in the audience, hope you get some benefit out of this, and we'll hopefully see you in person soon. Thanks again for the time. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Beau.